One that I'm very interested in seeing if this is going to work is The Dark Tower, the classic Stephen King series. They are looking to see if there's a way to make this into an ongoing film series. This was just confirmed last week. Harold and Kumar 3 is going to happen. And it comes out, and the new one was actually not so bad if you get a laugh. Now, this one here is one of those things that you just want to strangle people over. A few years ago, they decided that, you know what, maybe, just maybe it's time to do a sequel to The Thing, Kurt Russell, John Carpenter. Now, John Carpenter, since, you know, in recent years, a lot of his films didn't hit too well. The only one that really went over well was Vampires. He had a lot of very public failures in between there, or at least disappointments. So it was apparently approached saying, hey John, you know, they even did some remakes. They did like The Fog, they remade that, some of that. They went to John and said, okay, allegedly, we'd like you to write a script, a story outline for a sequel to The Thing. And we don't have a problem with you producing it. And, you know, go from there. And he goes, great, I'm going to direct, right? And they're like, well, yeah, we'll talk about that. So they reach out to Kurt Russell, and Kurt's like, yeah, I'm in. If John's in, if John's back and directing it, I'm in. So then comes the Thing video game. And the Thing video game met with phenomenal success in sales. And it was a somewhat follow-up to the film. Everything started really getting moving forward. Supposedly the offer was made, okay John, we're going to do this, then we'll let you write it, we'll let you produce it, and you can pick the director. Apparently John said, okay, that's acceptable to me, I'll do that. And so they're working away. They said, so what are you going to do, John? Who's the director? He said, me. He said I could pick my director, so I did. At which point the studio was like, well, that's not what we had in mind. So things went into limbo. Then we hear rumors that the Sci-Fi Channel was considering doing it as a miniseries. And one of the appeals to this is that with the advent of the new CGI technology, how creative they could be with the creature. You know, the last time it was corn syrup and rubber and silicone and latex and stick puppets. They think, and they did, I mean, it was, you know, Oscar caliber stuff. They came up with some incredible visual effects for that film. They're thinking with CGI they could really go crazy. So now I'm told things are moving forward, and they do have a new version of the Thing. And I'm glad you guys are all sitting down. A group of 20-somethings in the tropics, and that's apparently how they're going to do this thing. So the original film, the original book, the remake and reimagining with John Carpenter, all set in Antarctica. They decide, I know, let's put the cast of 90210 out in suntan oil, and this will fly.
Lost with Goop.
Yeah. So let's hope. That's apparently where it's leading. See, this is my attitude. I don't mind seeing another Thing movie. I possibly don't mind seeing it out of the Arctic because, all right, I can understand that maybe it's, I mean, yes, a big thing of it was the claustrophobic. We can't get out and go away because of the weather. We're stuck in here, we don't know. You know, I'm willing to say, all right, fine, you can play all sorts of things. There's a tsunami, there's a hurricane, something, they can't go. No problem, but you know, they're keeping the isolation factor, the fact that they're on the island, okay, we can't leave, otherwise this gets out. The problem, what bothers me is if you're truly going for the 20 to 30, 20, you know, 21 to 25 crowd, it's not going to work because the fact is I think you have to mix it up and have a wider range of people for this, otherwise it's just not, it defeats the purpose.
Be unbelievable.
Right. Yeah. Because, I'm sorry, I know there are some gifted people out there, but I don't believe in 21-year-old micro-scientists being able to analyze a thing on a genetic level. It's not going to work. Now, you know, you have that old crusty doctor in Wilford Brimley going, okay, this guy's got years of experience. You can sit down and say, yeah, I can believe this guy's figured out that if this thing gets out, total population ended. And, you know,
yeah. The other thing is that it eats life, and there's so much life that just goes in the ocean and then.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't freeze up again.
So then we have the other problem. The remake for the sake of a remake that you say, why? Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory here. You guys know William Gibson, the cyberpunk author and all that?
Yeah.
William Gibson was approached years ago to to come up with a storyline for a third Alien film. And I was very fortunate that I actually got to get my hands on this thing. And he wrote, it followed up pretty much at the end of Aliens, that there's a gigantic, I think it was called Anchor Point if I remember, there was a gigantic kind of military base mall / office complex in space. The shuttle docks there, and they go in to check it out. You know, they get Newt, they get Ripley out, they get the parts of Bishop, and of course there was an alien infestation, and Ripley is injured and put into a coma. The idea behind this was that it was going to be a two-part film. Sigourney was going to cameo in the third, star in the fourth, and this was designed so she could be involved in the series, but it freed her up for possible schedule conflicts, so on and so forth. The idea was fantastic because there was a scene in the book that was going to be very good, that was going to rival the shock value for the original chestburster scene. And that was that apparently they were going to imply that the creatures had the ability to possibly, like a spore, infect you through a spore if necessary. You know, the idea was that they are highly adaptable, that if a face hugger is not present, if a queen is not present, they can still find a way to infect you and move on. And the idea they had was a group of board level executives sitting there having a meeting, and all of a sudden one starts going, literally tears the thing off, boom, alien right there underneath the skin. And then it became the big military, you know, thing, Hicks and everybody, they're fighting out in the thing, going on. Big battle, and the idea behind it was that there was a separate faction, that the Earth at the time, there was a group, us, you know, the Western nations, and then there was like China and Russia and all that off the other way. And there was the implication that the Chinese, the Eastern faction, as it were, intercepted the shuttle and possibly found one of the eggs, grabbed one of the eggs. And then there was the whole Cold War thing. We've got one, they've got one, we've got to stop this, neither one trusts them, so on and so forth. They were going to wrap it up in the fourth film. You know, the idea of both sides now have the old so-called doomsday weapon, neither one can control it. Well, it was decided by the studio that, unfortunately, when it was pitched, very shortly after they received the script, the wall fell in Germany, Cold War ended, there you go. It was decided the East-West parallel was no longer appropriate, it was no longer topical. They went through a series of film ideas, everything from the monastery in space to the prison in space to what eventually became Alien 3, which was a conglomeration of the various ideas. If you get a chance, get the Alien Quadrilogy box set. They can't call it the director's cut because Fincher washed his hands of it, but there is the alternate cut of the film with the extra footage. And it is a much different film with that. It's actually quite good when you see the way it was originally intended to be released. So I mentioned that. And that leads to the one here where you go, why? Do you remember the old Patrick Swayze classic Red Dawn? They're planning on remaking it. And I'm saying, I don't know about you folks, but I truly don't worry about the communists from Cuba and Russia landing on my back door trying to take over the country with the Marxist propaganda right now. You know, we're told the big threat is terrorism, and therefore there you go. So, unless they're going to set this film in the 80s, which they might do, that's apparently one of the ideas they're kicking around right now. And so, you know, I kind of thought, for what it was fine. Why do we need another one? And then I started thinking, well, I wonder if they're going to change it a little bit so it's China that comes a knocking at the door, or North Korea. So, you know, keep that in mind. We have a updated version of Red Dawn out there. And Jack Black is back with School of Rock 2, which has now been confirmed and put into pre-production, so we will have a follow-up on that coming very shortly.